Three guys are in a waiting room, all waiting to be interviewed for the same job. First guy gets called in for the interview. He sits down in a chair opposite the woman who's about to conduct the interview, and he notices that she has no ears. He's trying hard not to stare because it's a rather uncomfortable thing. He doesn't want to bore his eyes on the side of her head, but he doesn't want to be looking out the window the entire time either. So he manages to strike a reasonably even balance, and the interview progresses, and everything goes pretty well. He's got a really good resume. They have a good little chat. At the end of the process, she says, you're a very fine candidate for a job here at this firm. Up to now, I've been doing most of the talking and questioning. If there's anything at all that you'd like to know from me, feel free. Whereupon he just can't hold himself back anymore. And he says, now that you mention it, I couldn't help but noticing, but you have no ears. Were you born with some sort of terrible congenital malformation? And she just loses it. She blows up. She looks at him and she says, you're not the type of person I thought you were. I can't believe you have such an utter lack of tact that you would ask a question like this. Just get out, leave. I don't want to see you. He walks back out through the waiting room, and the other two guys can see from the look in his face that something went really wrong. And the next guy goes in and sits down opposite this woman and notices also, just like the first guy, that she has no ears. And he's feeling similarly uncomfortable about the whole deal, trying not to stare. And he kind of muddles through, and everything goes reasonably well. And at the end of the interview, she says, you're very qualified for a job here. I'm very pleased with our conversation. Is there anything at all that you'd like to ask from me? And just like the first guy, he can't hold himself back any longer. And he says, now that you mention it, I couldn't help but noticing, but you have no ears. Were you in some sort of terribly disfiguring accident? And she looks at him and she shakes her head. She says, I can't believe that you have such a lack of interpersonal relationship and sense that you would ask such a humiliating question like that. We don't need people like you in this firm. Just get out, leave. So he walks back out through the waiting room and goes up to the one remaining guy and says, look, I figured out what happened to the first guy, and I made the same mistake. The woman who's about to interview you has no ears, and she's very, very sensitive about it. So whatever you do, don't mention it. Third guy goes in there armed with this information, sits down, has her in the palm of his hand, charming the hell out of her. The interview progresses. Everything is just perfect grade A. At the end of the process, she says, I'm all but ready to hire you here and now. You're probably the most qualified, best person I've ever interviewed for a job in this company, ever. Is there anything at all that you'd like to ask me? And he looks at her and says, well, I couldn't help but noticing, now that you mention it, you've got very beautiful eyes. Do you wear contacts? She flutters her eyes and she says, why, yes, how can you tell? He says, well, it's obvious, you can't wear glasses. I don't know if he got the job or not. Cheers.